Now, after the joints have been spread and the masonry units positioned, the joints must be tooled properly. This serves two purposes: to give the wall the appearance designed by the architect and to aid in making the joints water resistant. Pat will illustrate the three most common types of tooling and explain the advantages and disadvantages of each.
A rake joint is where you rake or scratch out some of the mortar. The most common tool used is a skate raker. The most common depth is about 1/4 of an inch. So if you only have 1/4 of an inch on that head joint and you come along and rake that out, you're really digging for trouble. But the other situation is that the bricklayers like this rake joint because they can build this whole wall here without striking. There is a proper time to strike, and if you see how it tears the joint, it just literally tears the mortar out of that joint. And it also leaves a ledge there for the water to lay on until it soaks into that joint. Now, if you think you have to have a rake joint, then the idea is to get a rake joint and then slick it with another tool to compress that joint. The convex striker is a very, very safe joint, because you see here where this mortar has just been cut off with a trowel, and when you strike it with this convex joiner, makes a concave joint, it compresses that mortar joint. And you can see the difference here. You get a totally different look or a totally different appearance. It does accentuate the brick, but it is very, very dangerous because the water lays on that bed, on this ledge here, and soaks back into that very porous joint. Now, another joint that is very safe is what we call grapevine joint, and we'll demonstrate it here. Now, it is still a tool that compresses the mortar joint. It does compress the mortar joint and makes a slick surface and resists the penetration of water. But the idea of a grapevine joint is not to drag it straight through the joint. You never see a grapevine growing straight. The idea is that the grapevine joint does want to wiggle a little bit.
There's also a proper and improper time to strike the joints, and it can make a substantial difference in the final appearance of the finished wall.
There's one proper time and two improper times to strike a joint. The proper time is when the joint is firm to the touch and no mortar comes off on your thumb. The first improper time is right after the brick was laid and the mortar joint is very, very wet. It will smear and cause the joint to be very light. The other improper time is after the joint has dried completely and you try to strike it. It takes much effort to strike, and also it'll turn the joint black.
While we're talking about appearance, this would be a good time to discuss the practice of retempering mortar. Once mortar has been mixed and transferred from the mixer to the mason's board, it begins to lose water. Stiffening can be brought about by evaporation of water from the mortar and hydration of cement. Water may be added from time to time to maintain workability. This practice can lead to problems with strength and the final appearance of the wall.
Each time you retemper, you lighten the color. As you can see, this mortar is darker. It was used right out of the mixer. The more you retemper, the lighter it gets, also decreasing bond and strength. In most cases, retempering is not a good idea.
When daily work is completed, it is recommended, and an excellent practice, to cover it with 6 mil plastic or a similar covering. This serves two purposes. It protects the wall from rain or other moisture entering the wall. It also protects against the excessive evaporation of moisture during hydration. Make sure that your covering cannot be blown around, leaving openings for moisture to enter the wall. Now let's return to the panels we originally constructed in order to demonstrate the results of the built-in weaknesses. Remember how we purposefully designed weak head and bed joints in these panels? Let's conduct a little demonstration here to show what happens when these types of problems, which are all too common in the industry, find their way into the final construction. To the back of each of these panels, we have attached a tank to hold water in contact with the finished wall. The panel on the left has the properly constructed bed and head joints, while the panel on the right has the faulty construction. As the water is poured into the tanks, watch what happens. As you can see, the panel with the faulty construction allows the water to move almost at will through the wall and then leak through the weakly constructed joints. Let's review what we've learned through the preceding information. 1. Proper workmanship is absolutely necessary to produce strong, water-resistant walls and better-looking masonry walls. 2. Well-mixed and properly proportioned mortar sticks to the trowel and spreads easily. 3. A proper mortar mix is 1 part masonry cement to 2 1/2 to 3 parts sand. 4. The color of the sand is very important to the final color of the mortar in the finished wall. Use the same sand throughout the entire construction project. 5. Tooling the mortar joints with the correct tool at the proper time will provide better water resistance and better looking finished walls. 6. Under many circumstances, mortar should not be retempered during construction. Mix new mortar instead for consistent color and a more uniform appearance. 7. Full bed joints and full head joints are essential to strong, water-resistant masonry walls. These instructional notes have been presented by Bricksment, a leader in the production of masonry cement for over 75 years.